So you've gone on this incredibly profound trip. Maybe you went and took ayahuasca in the Amazon and you connected with Mother Nature. Perhaps you purged old demons and behavior patterns. Maybe you had an LSD trip and you realized that this reality that you've been buying your whole life is a delusion. Or maybe you take magic mushrooms and realize that the whole concept of time isn't what it seems. Psychedelic trips can be so incredibly profound that you talk and think about it years afterwards. But what if I was to tell you that the trip doesn't actually begin until you come back to this reality? This may not be the case for everybody, but it isn't uncommon for you to have this profound shift in consciousness via a psychedelic and then come back to life and things aren't the same. Your relationship and approach to life, or at the very, very least, your basic perception, if you've had one of these profound trips I'm talking about, it's never the same. I remember my first mushroom trip. I had very little interest in nature and kind of going outside, and I was basically just obsessed with being locked in my man cave playing video games. And when I had this experience, I don't know, something in my brain just shifted. I remember realizing that there is no time, or at least how we think of time isn't exactly all it seems. Like back in the day, I'd look at a tree like this and just be like, yeah, whatever, boring. Sorry, guy. Basically, going outside in nature was an absolute chore for me. And I was incredibly just disconnected with the natural world around me. And after this trip, I came back and I was like, wow, all of a sudden I was more interested in nature. All of a sudden I was less interested in playing games. Not that I stopped. Like even right now, I find them absolutely fascinating, but my attachment and addictiveness to video games went down. In fact, I remember going through a little bit of an existential crisis because I wasn't enjoying the things that I was doing. Because I remember playing games all day, every day. It was like, I'm good, I'm happy. I could live like this my entire life and I will be so happy. And then one day this shift happened and just normal, mundane things like that, I was like, oh crap, this is, not only is this not making me happy, I'm kind of feeling more empty inside. There's something, you know, it's like it kind of pushed me to just go a different direction, because where I was at was very stagnant. And it might be the same for you, I'm sure. How many people do you know who've had a trip and they end up having a different relationship with the world? Now, this is where it gets really important, because just because psychedelics can drastically change your perception of the world, it doesn't actually change who you are, even though you may think it does. I'm guessing you have at least a basic understanding of mindfulness, which is basically being present with yourself and the environment around you. It's just being self-aware, whether it's being aware of your bodily sensations, like your breathing, your stomach raising up and down, and putting awareness into different parts of your body so you slowly relax the muscles one by one. Like this is one basic form. And then there's mindfulness of your thoughts. Thought trains coming in and out. But a lot of us, when a train comes, it's like, oh, we grab onto it and it takes us sometimes to nirvana, sometimes to not very nice places. And that's cool. I think it's the nature of the monkey mind, especially in this modern world, is that, like, it doesn't really shut up. And I don't think you can really make it shut up for good. I think you can kind of quieten it down, or at least change your relationship with it. And I think mindfulness really helps you to not emotionally react to thoughts so much, because thoughts come and go, and what you realize, even with psychedelics, at least for me, is that your thoughts aren't yours. And as you go along this life journey, you start realizing more and more that most of these thoughts don't even belong to you. They come from other places, right? Subconsciously, peers, parents, school, TV, content, etc. And so mindfulness really helps you discharge a lot of attachments that you have. And psychedelics are really dramatic and theatrical in kind of showing you this, kind of ripping off the Band-Aid, showing you a possibility of what's possible, or giving you a nightmarish glimpse of, hey, this is your life if you just keep going the way you're going. So it can kind of do both. It gives you it can give you a glimpse, a possibility of nirvana and heaven. And then it gives you but if you keep going this way, woo, and then you get ripped to shred and people have bad trips. And of course, I have to say that not everyone is built for psychedelics. Even meditation, especially if you've got psychosis or schizophrenia or things like that, and if your foundation of reality is already shaky the way it is, then doing practices that further detach you from life probably ain't going to be the best idea. And that's the thing about these philosophies, is that's all context. It all depends on where you are. But I think for most of us, or the vast majority of us, we could use with a little bit more detachment, but not apathy. This is where people in the spiritual community get very confused. They think that if they just don't care and go in this apathetic state, then that they're spiritual. But it's like, no, you still have to have compassion and empathy. Like, these are all like Buddhist principles, actually just basically all religious principles. So being compassionate, empathetic, and not just connecting with human nature and yourself, but also it's like this delicate dance of not being too attached. Because the thing is, like, after you do psychedelics, life can be very difficult, especially if you get a rude awakening. And then all of a sudden, the people that you start hanging, like I was talking about before with video games, like, oh, it started giving me less pleasure. Hanging out with certain friends who were just like smoking bongs every day. Like, that used to be like my lifestyle. And then now it's like, it started to give me negative feelings. I started to not enjoy drinking as much. I started not to enjoy just watching movies all day. And I love movies. Again, this is about extremes here. Not only can it be difficult because your perception of the world begins to shift, but if you're not living a congruent life, that's when it gets real hard. But this is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing. Because if you're living a life that is not really aligned to your core values, then yeah, of course you're going to feel shitty. And then consciousness amplifiers like ayahuasca or mushrooms can really make that fact incredibly obvious, even if you've escaped this for many years. Psychedelics are very good at bringing these things to the surface, forcing you to face your shadow. But like I said, once you come down to earth, that's like, all right, this is the real trip. It's the psychedelics is like a simulation, a VR simulation. And then real life, well, it's real life. Sometimes psychedelics can make life easier, because I've had post trips where it's like, oh, everything's easier. I'm more present, less reactive. I'm not pissed off as much. I'm just generally more loving. And then other times when you have a rude awakening, you go back to life and it's like, oh crap, I'm actually more depressed. Thinking about these existential fears more. I'm losing my meaning and purpose. But all these things is like telling you, hey, maybe you should shift this way. Pain and suffering arises to the mind for a reason. It's like your body and your soul speaking to you. It's all about decoding it. And it doesn't have to be so complicated. We all make it complicated. And the world makes it more complicated and adds extra obstacles. And again, psychedelics, since they're such natural boundary dissolvers, it's easy to see through it when you're in that state. But you can't always be in that state, because that's how you end up losing your mind if you just continuously obsess with just shifting your state of consciousness. Unless you're built for it, I guess, like a shaman or something. God knows I wouldn't be able to do psychedelics every day. Oh man, I'd lose my mind. I'm like maybe once a year, I'm like, okay, little tune-up, you know what I mean? A little reconnection. Because even though I know all this, I'm a human being and I forget sometimes. And it's not even saying you need psychedelics, but this is where it comes to mindfulness. Mindfulness is so freaking important. And mindfulness is a spiritual practice that goes back so many thousands of years that there's a reason why it stood the test of time, because it works. It really does. And I don't want to leave you this video of just this vague, go meditate. That's great. But I want to give you something specific. And whether you are an advanced meditator or you're a beginner or if you've never meditated at all, this technique that I'm about to share with you is actually not only scientifically backed to reduce stress, but it's also one of my favorites. So good. Sit or stand, doesn't really matter. So basically, you're breathing in 6 seconds. And then when you get to the very top, just try to fill your lungs to the brim. Get even just that little, and then you hold 6 seconds. And then exhale. 6 seconds. Pay attention to your stomach, the diaphragm expanding. This is all about focusing on the breath, having one singular focus. But this I find a bit easier than just normal deep breath meditation when you're like, oh, just be aware of your thoughts. It's like, no, at least you got something that your mind can cling on to, a formula. It's like, okay, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds hold, and then 6 seconds until your lungs are completely empty, hold for 6 seconds. And you'll be surprised on how much this actually resets your nervous system and puts you into that present state very quickly. And it's also a really good letting go technique, because this technique that I just showed you, you can also extend that, again, especially if you've got like an ADHD mind or you struggle with meditation. This is actually very simple and easy, because not only does it put you into a state much quicker, because it's deep breath meditation, not just observing thoughts, but it also gives your mind something solid to focus on, not just breath, but the counting, and if you want to add something else. This is a little bit more woo-woo spiritual, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyway. But you basically do an imagination technique, visualizing so same technique, first part, breathe in, preferably with your nose, and you imagine just energy from the earth rising up into the soles of your feet, like roots, going in. And then you kind of imagine a negative feeling or something you want to let go of. Maybe it's anger or frustration or envy or whatever it is. And you feel it. You feel that negative stuff. And then hold, let go, put it back to the earth. And then you can do this many cycles as you want, focusing on whatever you want. And it does kind of discharge a lot of these things. So you've got the first part, and the second part, you basically picture a ball of light above you, like a spirit bomb, if you will. And same thing, you breathe in the white light, visualize the white light filling up your entire body, cleaning you, giving you more positive energy, and then you breathe out. So again, two parts. First part's kind of like shadow stuff. You're tapping into the negative stuff you want to let go. And then the second part is about cultivating positive things that you want more in your life. So yeah, there's a practical tip. I hope you guys enjoy. Stay safe, mate. Catch you next time.